So our next presenter is Tatiana Hasbargen. Tatiana is a paid search specialist at Flint Group. Working with a variety of clients from several industries, she strategizes, implements, and monitors performance of search engine marketing, or SEM, campaigns, including paid search, shopping, online display, and video advertising. Dedicated to client success, Tatiana prides herself on building high-performing campaigns to get the most value of the client's dollar. She carefully reviews the data of each campaign and provides detailed reporting, so it's evident that her work is producing the desired results. When she is not working, she likes hiking, mountain biking, snowboarding, paddling, and spending time with friends and family when there's not a pandemic. So welcome, Tatiana.
So thank you, Laura. Like she said, my name is Tatiana. I work at Flint Group, and I'm going to be talking about SEM today. A little bit about me. Like I said, I work at Flint. I've been there for about 2.5 years. Before that, I went to North Dakota State University. I majored in marketing with a minor in sociology and an emphasis in global business. I forgot for a second already. And then there's just some photos of me and things I like to do outside of work. I didn't include any mountain biking photos because I'm not very good, so we'll just skip over that part for now. And yeah, so today I'll be talking about search engine marketing. I'll probably refer to it more as paid search just because SEM is kind of like the umbrella and then paid search falls underneath it. So just to be a little bit more specific about that, I guess. And what is paid search? So you'll see those examples of those ads on the right side of your screen. Today I'm going to be using the photographer example. We're going to say that I have my own photography business, which I don't, but we're going to say I do for now. So a paid search campaign is a keyword campaign that targets people or users, I'll mostly say users, when they search on a search engine such as Google or Bing. I'll mostly refer to Google today too, because I mostly work with Google. I do a little bit with Bing, but Google's massive. So I do most of my work with Google. And one kind of like, it's not really a caveat, but kind of a caveat. I highly recommend if you're going to do a paid search campaign or a video campaign or any sort of Google campaign for your company, I highly recommend getting certified. It's completely free and it's pretty easy. It shouldn't take more than a day. You can kind of spend as much time as you want on it. But if you just Google Skillshop, you will be able to find it. And it's pretty, like I said, it's easy, but it's a very robust introduction and explanation of how it works. So I just would really do that before you get started running a campaign. Why does paid search work? So basically, like as long as your keywords are set up the way that they should be, you're almost guaranteed high quality traffic. And as long as your messaging is super relevant to your users as well, and you pay for your results. So if you say you only want to spend $500 in a month, you can do that. Say you want to spend $500 a day, you can do that, volume permitting. Obviously, there has to be the search volume there for that, but you can do that if it's there. And the campaigns are super easy to measure and easy to optimize too. And I'll go through kind of all of that as I go through this too, but just heads up on that. And what do you need to run a paid search campaign? What are some like basic things you need? So first you got to just create your account. And with Google, I highly recommend you just start with Google and maybe don't even consider Bing for a while. Some industries, Bing is a little bit more prevalent, but a lot of industries it's not really, because as you can see, Google controls about 90% of the global search engine market, which is kind of like crazy to think about. Same with the 70,000 searches per second. That's insane to me. But yeah, so then just create your account, create that environment. You'll have to add your business credit card to that to your account. And so since I work for an agency, we do invoicing, so our billing is a little bit different than what you'll see. So I don't want to touch any more really on that because I don't want to lead you astray. But I will say that Google is very good about explaining exactly what you need, when you'll be charged, and how all of that works. So Google's very, very good about that. And assets that you'll need. Pretty much you'll only just need keywords and then ad text specific to those keywords. And this is kind of what the campaigns look like. So you'll have your campaign up here, and then you'll have your ad groups underneath that, and then you'll have your keywords, which will trigger your ad text to show. So you'll see here that I have three ad groups. I have wedding photographer, because in my example, I'm a wedding only photographer. I don't do boudoir, I don't do engagements, I don't do portraits, I don't do landscape, I don't do anything else. But I also have the photographer ad group is ad group 2, and then the ad group 3 is my brand, my company, Photos by Tatiana. So if you just kind of take a peek at that, and then so just kind of keep this structure in your mind as I'm going through this too. It might make it a little bit easier to understand. So two things when you're setting up a campaign, two things that you want to keep in mind, and I really can't stress the whole think like a customer enough. I know it's like it's what they always say for all marketing, but it's very important in search engine marketing and paid search too. And stay organized. Sometimes when you're going through and finding keywords, you can have hundreds of keywords, so it can be a lot to sift through sometimes. So just staying organized is definitely going to be your best course of action. And two, when you're thinking about setting up that campaign, what's the goal of the campaign? What do you want users to do after they see your ad? Do you want them to call you? Do you want just to get them on the website? Is there a form on a page on your website that you want them to fill out to contact you? Kind of think about that, because that will structure your, not only like the keywords you're bidding on, but the content in your ads and where you drive them on your site. So to my second point, you need to have a solid landing page, and truly for anything digital that you're driving someone to a landing page, your website and that landing page needs to be of high quality, just because, I mean, and from the Google side of it, it affects your rankings, and there's just so many things that affect that. But so to get back to this, so include some keywords in the copy on your website. Don't like put photographers every other word, you know, just keep it natural, keep it pretty natural on there, but definitely put some in there. And like I said, is there a promotion or anything? Like say I'm offering like free mini sessions or something. So I want to put that offer in my ad text, but I need to have more information about that on my landing page too, because if a user comes in and searches it and sees my ad and sees free mini sessions, they're likely going to want more information on that. So we need to drive them directly to the page that gives them that information. One thing I always think of too is not only think like a customer, but do 90% of the work for the customer, because if you don't, and if you drive them somewhere that they need to kind of peruse around your website to find what the ad was for, they're not, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to spend the time to find it. They're going to go back to that SERP page, that search engine results page, and find another link to click on. That's just instant gratification these days, you know? So, I mean, you have to do a lot of the work for the user and kind of bring them right to where that ad text or those keywords lead them. Another thing, mobile compatibility is a must. I can't stress that enough. I don't think I've ever worked on a campaign that's had less than like 65% of its traffic come from a mobile phone. So it's absolutely vital that your website is mobile compatible, like at all times. And like I said, the poor landing pages can affect your quality score that Google ranks you. So it can drop your click-through rate and increase your CPCs. So to kind of explain those two metrics, your click-through rate, which you probably know already, is your clicks divided by your impressions. And then your cost per click is how much on average you spent to get that user to your website. So what did each click cost? That's your average CPC. So just move on here. And then two, you'll want to think about location targeting. So say I'm a photographer in Duluth, Minnesota, where I live, and I don't want to travel more than 60 miles away from Duluth. So then I don't want to advertise for my business outside of that 60 miles because I'm unwilling to go that far, you know? So you don't want to appear, one, you're kind of like wasting money if you're targeting outside of that because you're not willing to go there, and you can create a negative brand experience because if someone's really interested in your work and really wants you and calls you up and does all the things, and then you're just like, oh, no, sorry, you know, that kind of kind of can create a bad experience for them. So just be really mindful of that and target only where you want to appear or where you want to travel. Another thing to think about is how far can you ship your products? You don't want to advertise outside of where you can ship your products, because that, again, will just create bad user experience. And are there any locations you want to exclude? I know on some of our clients, they can't advertise in Canada or Mexico or certain states or things like that. So then we can actually add those locations as negatives, which is really nice. But because of the way that the algorithms in Google works, sometimes in like IP addresses and all that, sometimes you will still appear in those searches, but it's a lot less likely if you have those excluded. And demographic targeting. Do you want to target any age, any gender, any income, any parental status? There's lots of options to choose from in there too. And bid strategies. There are so many bid strategies. I'm not exaggerating. There are so many. And since I highly recommend that you get certified, I'm not really going to touch on any of the bid strategies just because there's so many options. The one thing I will recommend is starting with manual CPC. That means manual cost per click. It's a double-edged sword there, because it gives you the most control, but you also have the most responsibility. So what that means is you'll set your ad group bid. So say your keywords in that certain ad group are around $3. So your bids are set to $3. And say another advertiser comes in and they're bidding $3.15. And that's what the new bid level is at. So then if your bid is lower than that $3.15, that keyword won't trigger any of your ads because it's not high enough to be competing with that other advertiser. So that's what I mean, where it's the most responsibility, where you kind of have to keep checking in on it. But if you go with the automatic strategies, that will just, like, whatever the keyword bid is at, that's how much you're paying, and you don't have any control over that. So especially when you're starting out, just to get an idea of how much you're going to pay, what you're comfortable with, that kind of thing, I would recommend starting with manual CPC just so you have that control. And then once you kind of get into it more, you can play around with it from there and change it how you see fit. Another thing is, almost all websites have their Google Analytics tied to it. So if you do have Google Analytics on your website, it's highly recommended that you link your Google Analytics and Google Ads accounts together. Doing that, you can monitor the conversions that happen on your website in Google Ads. It's not 100% necessary to link the two, but it is a best practice. On the Google Ads side, if you don't have them linked, and if you don't have a Google Analytics, Google Ads just shows how that the users got to the website. It doesn't show any information about what the users did once they are on your website. So there's no session data, there's nothing like that from the Google Ads environment. All of that stuff is Google Analytics. So that's why it's so recommended, to make it a bigger, robust, put together campaign. Here is that structure again, just to kind of remind you of what that looks like. Take a peek, kind of familiarize yourself with some of the keywords that are in there and how they're organized. So really the keywords are the nuts and bolts of the campaign. They will make or break your campaign. So it's really important that you do your research. So, and when you're doing your research, there's a few things to think about. One, obviously, always think like you are the customer. Always be in the shoes of the customer. And how would that customer describe your business? And those are your keywords. So one good example, a lot of the work I do, I work with a lot of ag equipment. So those are like big, those model numbers are pretty popular, the series numbers. Farmers and whomever are buying tractors, they often know those model numbers and they'll search in Google with those model numbers. So it's important for us as advertisers to bid on those because users know it. So it's super relevant for them. If they search tractor model 1234, we want to be there because our client sells that tractor, you know? But if you're thinking about like jeans, no one's going to know the SKU or that model number of the jeans. So maybe it's better to use descriptors like women's black jeggings or whatever that may be, you know? And then are there any specific things or searches you don't want to appear in? So like I said before, for this example, I'm just a wedding photographer. So I don't want to appear in like boudoir photographer searches. I don't want to appear in like landscape photography searches. I don't want to appear in like portrait photography, you know, so just kind of think about like where you want to go with that, I guess. And truly, like the quality of keywords determines the frequency that your ads will show and the relevancy to the user's search query. So it's super important. And there's a few tools that I like to use to find those keywords. The first one is the Google Keyword Planner in the Google Ads environment. The volume and the costs and stuff that are in there are pretty true. Sometimes they're a little bit off, but it's pretty true. Also, look through your website. What kind of nuggets can you pull out from your website? That's a great place to start too. That's always where I start with clients, is I go through the websites and I see, I mean, what are they? You know, what is this business? What do they offer? So that's kind of where I'd like to start too. I also will just search some words. So say it's, I'm looking at, I want to find like a combine keyword or something like that, you know, so I will search like combines near me or something like that. And then I'll look down in Google, it'll say people also searched for, I think that's what it says. And then it'll have more keywords underneath that. That's a great place to find keywords too. So you just really kind of got to search around for them. And also once you're running a campaign, there's a search terms report that comes up that shows all the keywords that triggered your ads to show, and you can add some of those keywords to your campaign too, which I'll talk more about that in a second because I know that is kind of confusing. Yeah, and then best practices. Always think quality over quantity. You don't necessarily need to have a super lengthy list of keywords by any means. Relevant keywords should take precedent over like the generic ones, you know. And consider your budget, you know. So say I have a really tight budget. Maybe I don't want to bid on that just photography where it just was looking for photographers near me. Maybe I don't want to bid on that because I want to be pretty careful with my budget, you know. And keep an eye on your competitors. What are they doing? Use some tools to keep an eye on them. And like I said, I'm kind of yelling at you there. Think like a consumer. Just always be kind of in that consumer mindset. It'll make it much easier, I promise. And then, so kind of into a little bit more about the keywords. There are 5 match types. You have exact match, phrase match, and then broad match and broad match modifier, and then negative match, which I'll go through those in a second, so don't feel like I'm leaving you high and dry. So here's our structure. And if you look under ad group 1, wedding photographer, I have broad match / broad match modifier. What makes it the modifier is that plus sign in front of wedding and photographer. So what that means is it's a broad match. So it'll pull in like any keywords that are related to wedding photographer in Duluth. But because I have that modifier in front of wedding and photographer, the users have to have wedding photographer in their search query with any other words in order for my ad to appear. So that's pretty broad. That'll pull in a lot more searches. Exact match is the user has to type in exactly that in order for the ad to appear. So the user would have to type in best wedding photographer near me in order for that ad to appear. And then you'll see phrase match a little bit to the right with the quotations around it, wedding photographer near me. So what that means is the users have to search wedding photographer near me, but if they have anything before or anything after, then it would still trigger that same keyword, which is like how phrase match works. And then on the right, you'll see the negative match. So like I said, I'm not a boudoir, I'm not engagement, none of that other photography. So I put a negative match for boudoir photographers near me. And I always like to do, and this isn't like necessarily what everyone has to do, but I like to do negative match keywords as phrase match because I think it encompasses more. And it's like, instead of adding a bunch of exact match negatives, I can add maybe 1 or 2 phrase match negatives and it'll still exclude all of those others, you know? And once you get into it, all of that will just make more sense. So these are the keywords we have that are going to trigger the ad text that we have written. So a little bit about the ad text, you'll see it here in the example. You want it to be clear and concise. You have strict character limits that you cannot go over. You're offered 3 headline spaces at 30 characters each. So what is that, 90 total in the headline? And then you have 2 descriptions that you can use, and those are each 90 characters. So you have to be clear, you have to be concise, and I mean, that's just best practice all the way around, right? And you want to include some of your keywords in there too. Obviously, like the content on your landing page, don't overstuff it, but put some in there. And I like to have more than one ad. I like to have at least 4 in an ad group. So, and Google too will auto optimize, like whatever ad starts to perform the best, Google will start showing that more. And you can turn that setting off, but I think it works really well. I like to do that. But yeah, and then you can also do sentence case versus title case. And I'm not seeing any title case examples in that, but if you Google title case, it'll be clear what that is. For the industries that I work with, I've noticed that title case performs a little bit better typically on the search engine results pages, but it can be very, very different for different searches, different people, you know, it really just depends. So it's good to have a variety of both, so both people can get that. And like I talked about before, are there any offers to include? Is there a phone number that you want them to call you at? You can add that as a phone call extension to your ads. It just has to be reflected on your landing page too. Otherwise, Google thinks you're lying and they're like, what the heck? And then they'll disapprove it and it'll become a whole thing. And then site links. So you'll see under that top result where it says affordable photographers near you. Those are site links underneath that says family portraits, wedding photography rather, headshots, and lifestyle. Those are those site links. So if you have different like pages in your website that you want to feature there, that's a great idea. Often, like what I will do for clients is if there's an offer, I'll write the ad text for the offer and drive it to that offer landing page. And then I'll include, like, if they have a ton of locations, I'll include a locations extension, I'll include a contact us extension. If it's like an egg equipment, I'll include their used equipment section. It really just kind of depends. So think about it from like the user, like what else might they want to see or what else might get them to click, you know? So just think about that. And also you can add your location extensions. You have to set up a Google My Business account, which you should do if you have a business. And you can add that as a location extension. Unfortunately, these 3 ads don't have that added. What the location you see down below is just Google's local results page, unfortunately. I searched a few times and I couldn't find one to pop up with a location extension, unfortunately, but yeah, so you can apply those and then users can find you, your location and your phone number super easily via those location extensions as well. And optimization. So while your campaign is running, this isn't like, so if you're running like a radio spot, those are kind of like set it and forget it, it's gonna run for a month, you know? Whereas Google is not that way because so many things can change. So you wanna keep an eye on your keywords. Are they expensive? Are they cheap? Are they getting a ton of volume and very little clicks? So you just kind of wanna keep an eye on that. There are industry benchmarks for click-through rates. So just Google that. You could literally Google industry benchmark click-through rates and you'll find kind of where you should fall. Yeah, and then take a peek at your ad text performance. Is there one that's performing really well? Is there one that's not? You can pause ad text, you can turn it back on. It's really like, you can do a ton of stuff. It's really cool. Location performance, are you targeting the state of Montana and you're getting absolutely no traffic? Then you can just exclude it or just stop targeting it rather. Or if you're targeting the state of New York and you're getting insane amount of traffic that it's super expensive and you don't want it, then you can just remove it and it's super easy to do. You can place bid adjustments, you can do increase and decrease in their percentages. So Google recommends actually that you apply a 20% cell phone bid increase on it right from the get-go, no matter what kind of campaign it is. So that means if someone's searching for photographers near me on their cell phone and I have a 20% bid increase on it, it'll push my bid up by 20% and hopefully get me in front of my competitors. So I show up number 1 or 2. And kind of a caveat to all of the optimization I just talked about is try not to optimize everything at once. You want to kind of space it out, check your results, and then go from there. Because if you do like a mass optimization and the campaign tanks, you won't really know why, you know, like you'll have 5 different things that you did and you'll be like, well, I can't tell you if it was 1 or if it was 3, you know, so just kind of do like one or two things at a time, give it a week maybe or something, see what it does, and then go from there. But yeah, so to recap, keywords are the lifeblood of paid search campaigns. So as long as you have those set up in really organized ad groups and you have great ad text supporting your keywords and a great landing page supporting your keywords, it will perform well. Any questions?
Is there a certain amount of money spent on Google Ads a month that is too low to be effective?
It really depends on your market. So if you're targeting like the continental US, you're going to probably have to fork over a bit more. If you're targeting just state of Minnesota, it'll probably be a little bit less. So it's hard to answer that because every industry is different, and depending on your location targeting, I mean, I have some clients that have campaigns that are spending like $5 a day and it's not really doing much for them, you know, so it's kind of, you pay for your results, you know, so it's hard to answer that question because in some industries there may not be a lot of search volume and $5 a day could be more than enough. But in a lot of times, I wouldn't go less than $20 a day. So maybe if you want to do some like a segmented campaign or something like that, that might be a good idea. Just so you're not spending $1,000 in a month or whatever, you know.
So question about landing pages. When you're creating a landing page, do you use subdomains or like bit.ly or a custom URL?
So Google doesn't like redirects. It will disapprove your campaign if it redirects. So subdomains can work. Really just try to keep it, like if you have a WordPress site or a, I want to say Moxie, but it's not Moxie. I can't remember the other one. I don't know. But if you like one of those that creates websites for you or have those templates, those domains are fine. Subdomains are usually fine, but bit.ly links, I've never ran a campaign to a bit.ly link, and I don't think Google would approve it because it's a redirect, you know, and like so I don't think Google would like that.
So should your landing page have the same kind of nav as your main website, or like just one or two call to action?
Yeah, so ideally your landing page is on your website. So ideally your landing page is just a page on your website because then users are on your website and they can navigate and go through whatever they want to do. If you have a landing page that's separate from your website, it should probably link back to it or link back to like the corporate, or if you have corporate or however that works. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
There's a couple
course.
more questions. If you have other questions, feel free to reach out to Tatiana on social. You can reach out on our Instagram and we can make sure that she gets that. For those of you who want to take a look at the slide deck again, that's going to be in the packet. I answered, because it didn't show up in the chat, I answered in the question section, so you should be able to get to the packet there, but we will also be sending out an email, so you'll have that too. So you can go through all of the slides again and reach out later if you have some questions as well.
Happy to help. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
Yes.